Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Chris Hove. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships with Grosso University, and I'm very happy that all the panelists and attendees are here. We had an overwhelming response to this. As a matter of fact, there were probably hundreds of people who were not able to get into the webinar today, and we'll make sure that they get a copy of this. Again, thank you very much to the panelists and all the attendees for taking some of your valuable time today to go through some of these very important and highly concerning issues for the folks in our industry. Just to let everyone know, I will attempt to politely moderate so that we can get through all of the content. There's a lot of important stuff for us to get through. The purpose of this webinar in general is to help all remodelers that are in the Grosso network or those who are able to get on the webinar today plan for the challenges associated with the coronavirus. They're going to be significant, but many of them are able to be overcome with some technologies and by simply planning ahead and knowing what your approach is going to be. Nick Richmond, the CEO of Matrix Home Solutions and also a partner with Grosso, will talk about crisis leadership and what you can do to keep your team calm, collected, and working toward your common goals. We also want to talk about a phased approach to change. We don't want to, stand around and spin in circles going, oh my God. We need to know what we're going to do today to have as much revenue coming in as possible. We need to know what we're going to do tomorrow if things change. So we'll walk through all that. We'll definitely educate you about some solutions to maintain revenue should things change in a direction where we're not able to get out in front of people in their homes. We've brought on some of our sponsor partners to talk about their solutions, and they are amazing. A huge part of this is to keep our network strong and to keep us all connected and communicating with best practices. We're staying informed to the degree possible here at Grosso, and we're being proactive with developing scripts and workflows and solutions. But the stronger our network is, the more likely we are to encounter some different viewpoints and some different solutions so that we can incorporate those into the information we distribute. Of course, we're going to attempt to answer any questions that you may have at the end of this. So please do stick around to the end if you do have those questions. And then lastly, we want to decide if this is something that we should continue to do weekly or even more often than that should things start to change. One solution we've discussed is to record the webinar portion ahead of time so that there aren't any technological issues, and then at the end of it open the floor for questions that maybe didn't get answered. All right, so first we're going to have Nicholas Goldsworthy from Witt & Howard. He's an attorney. He's going to help walk us through some of the current state of affairs and also some of the legality and also some financial things that are coming into play right now. So Nick, go ahead. Thanks for being here.
Hi guys, Nick Goldsworthy here. I'm an attorney with the law firm Witt & Howard. We represent companies in Michigan, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And more specifically, I serve as outside general counsel to small and medium-sized closely held construction and home remodeling businesses by providing advice, assistance, and everything else in connection with general contract matters concerning vendors, suppliers, customers, licensors, employees, and other day-to-day business transactions. 2019 or COVID-19 as it's called from a legal standpoint. And hopefully we can provide you, your business, and your employees with some reassurance that this storm will pass. Employers and employees alike are facing a lot of challenges due to this global pandemic that we're experiencing. The disease itself is caused by the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2. But yeah, the following is intended to kind of track with the CDC guidelines. I encourage all employers to visit the interim guidelines or interim guidance for businesses and employers, and also to visit the health department of your state and your specific locality in your county for updates on what's going on. So yeah, I think that's a good starting point. Now, what can you do now? Employers right now should really actively encourage sick employees to stay home, separate sick employees emphasize staying home when sick, good respiratory etiquette. That basically means just coughing into your elbow rather than into your hand or in the open air. Hand hygiene by all employees is extremely important. And performing routine environmental cleaning, busting out the Lysol wipes or 409, whatever it is that you use, and cleaning every surface in your workspace that's been exposed to, where there's a high traffic area, really. And advise employees before traveling to take certain steps. That could be anything from looking at travelers' notices on the CDC's website, just checking their own symptoms, um, that they should notify, the supervisor or manager for advice if they're going outside the United States, those sorts of things. And yeah, if you're an employer, there's some really helpful fact sheets from the CDC's website on what you need to know and what to do if you're sick. This is really helpful for employees who are still coming to the office. And if your workplace hasn't adopted any work from home policy, you should definitely have these posted everywhere so people can, avoid the hysteria. So, how can employers decrease the spread of COVID-19? Coming up with a plan. I think Nick outlined it pretty clearly yesterday about not buying into the hysteria and taking a proactive approach to running your business. And that part of that is getting a plan in place, getting something in writing, and having a clear a plan to communicate these things. So identifying and communicating objectives to your employees, vendors, customers, which may include one or more of the following: reducing transmission among staff, protecting the higher risk populations from adverse health complications, those individuals that are what's called immunocompromised, maintaining business operations, and minimizing adverse effects on other entities in the supply chain. Um, so responding to COVID-19, some key considerations to be thinking about when drafting a response plan is the disease severity. The number of people who are sick, hospitalization and death rates in the area where your business is located. Two, impact of disease on employees that are vulnerable and maybe at higher risk for COVID-19. Just letting I guess, educating your employees that some people may be at a higher risk for illness, older adults, those with chronic medical conditions, those that have upper respiratory infections. Those are the types of individuals that would be more at risk. But yeah, and be prepared for increased absenteeism. Again, this mostly applies if your workplace does not have a work from home policy adopted or in place. Yeah, a lot of people, because of the quarantines, mandatory quarantines on a state or other localized level, they're closing schools for the next month and a half or so. So be careful about absenteeism with employees. If employees need to stay home, try to work around that, accommodate that in the best way you can. If paid time off or vacation days can be used up, encourage employees to use those days. But yeah, employers should definitely be monitoring and responding to absenteeism as it comes up. Be anticipating that. Cross-train personnel to perform essential functions at the job. I know Nick kind of touched on this earlier when he said, he was cutting back on non-essential staff. So making sure that your top performers are multifaceted, they're interdepartmental, so to speak, that they can kind of wear many hats. And second, assess your essential functions and the reliance that others in the community have on you, whether it's your services or your products. Be prepared to adapt your business practices if needed to maintain critical operations. This is what every employer right now should be discussing whether their employees are still coming into the office or they're working from home. You definitely want to involve your employees in developing and reviewing this plan. Conduct a focused discussion or exercise to identify gaps. Share your plan with employees and explain, existing human resource policies or workplace and leave policies or flexibilities and the paid benefits that will be available to employees. Share best practices with other businesses in your communities, especially those in your supply chain. Chambers of commerce are a great example, and other associations with which you deal to improve your community response efforts. Part of this is just showing a bit of solidarity with those in your community that you're taking a proactive approach and you're not, necessarily freaking out about what's going on, but you're willing to help and you're doing your part. And then moving along, identify possible work-related exposure and health risks to your employees. OSHA has a lot of helpful information on how to protect workers from potential exposures. I know you can find that through the CDC's website. Review and revise human resources policies to make sure that those policies and practices are consistent with public health recommendations in your locality and that they are consistent with existing state and federal workplace laws. I strongly encourage you, if you have an attorney that can represent you and advise you on these matters, if your company is subject to the Family Medical Leave Act, there and among other laws, you should be really working with them closely to understand what the employer's rights are as far as what questions you can ask, and those sorts of things. So you're maintaining compliance with the FMLA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. But if not, I encourage you to look at the Department of Labor's website and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's website for additional assistance on those topics. Exploring whether you can establish policies and practices such as work from home or flexible working hours. If you can stagger the employees' shifts, that may work. So you're kind of running a little more lean than you otherwise would. That may help to reduce the exposure. But yeah, you otherwise want to increase social distancing, and staggered shifts or working from home policies will help accommodate that. For employees who are able to work from home, managers and supervisors should encourage them to continue to do that until their symptoms go away, if they do have symptoms. Make sure you've got information about how your work from home policy is implemented, and well documented. You should have that available to your employees about what technology and infrastructure is needed to support people who are going to be working from home, identifying essential business functions, essential jobs or roles, and critical elements within your supply chains, e.g. raw materials, suppliers, subcontractor services or products, and logistics, those activities that are required to maintain your operations. Plan for how your business will operate if there is increasing absenteeism or these supply chains are interrupted. One thing I strongly encourage my clients to look at are the force majeure provisions. Revisiting those force majeure provisions will really help you understand what your contract rights and obligations are in terms of either terminating or canceling the contract, and especially in light of this public health emergency. So that's something to be aware of. Plan to minimize exposure between your employees, like I said, with social distancing, establishing a process that to communicate information to employees about what your infectious disease outbreak plan will be and the latest COVID-19 information. Anticipate the hysteria, as Nick pointed out. There's going to be a lot of fear and anxiety, rumors and misinformation spreading around. So how do you get around that? And nipping it in the bud quickly and early with a solid response plan is always helpful to kind of head that off at the pass, as it were. additional short-term planning. Um, Keep your employees, your customers, employees, vendors, suppliers, and everybody else informed via email, Skype, FaceTime, Zoom. These are all temporary measures to get around. If you do not have a work from home policy, this is a good way to interface with your customers, your employees, and everybody else to just let them know that you're still operating, you're being mindful of what uh, local health authorities are requiring and to comply with and reduce the spread of these diseases. So keep that in mind. Contact your bank about a line of credit. There's a lot of worry about, should we be cutting staff? Should we be terminating everybody and just cutting all expenses where needed? This would be a good time to talk with your bank and see what your options are. Viewing them as a partner, I think, is always a good thing. It's very important to maintain that relationship with them and just kind of let them know that you're taking proactive measures to handle this. But if you have short-term cash flow needs that you can explore, think about a line of credit, and also just keep an eye out for the funds that will be available through the SBA. I know there's an economic injury disaster loan through the SBA coming out that our leaders in Congress are going to be allocating more funds through the SBA. So there will be funds available to businesses to use during this time of need. And yeah, conserve cash, cut costs where necessary. If short-term funding is not an option for you, then you got to keep the ship from sinking. Then this is a great way to help you accomplish that. Take a look at your operating reserve, uh, cut costs where necessary. Other ways to help reduce the impact of this outbreak is looking for ways to increase inventory turns through discounting. If you've if you've had inventory sitting for a long time and you need to get rid of it, um, a, a great discount. It would be great to offer discounting for those products. Review your insurance coverage. Business interruption insurance is a great um, policy coverage that a lot of businesses have. A lot of claims are going to be being made against the insurance companies for the losses that they've sustained as a result of COVID-19. So um, take a look at your insurance policies, see if you have some coverage here for these sorts of circumstances. If not, plan for the future, plan to have that coverage. I know again that this will be an added cost, but this is something that not a lot of business were anticipating, and um, here's where we're at. Specifically to the home remodeling industry, get ahead of permitting issues by working with local governments and municipalities to obtain approvals. Um, Essentially, get your homework done. If you have outstanding permit issues or jobs that have not been completed, and and those sorts of things, to get your paperwork in order now. I think that's the most helpful approach to being, and that's part of being proactive in this process. So yeah, to kind of piggyback off of what I discussed earlier, creating an employee communications plan, and this is especially true with this COVID-19 and all the hysteria surrounding it. How do you get around the complications and I guess the backlash from employees who may be spreading misinformation or who are otherwise fearful or anxious about what's going on and how that impacts their job. And yeah, again, deciding how to handle spikes in absenteeism, implementing a work from home or a telecommuting policy, reviewing your workplace safety policies, and also be mindful of the Americans with Disabilities Act and your obligations under that law. There's certain things that you can and cannot ask employees in terms of um, their exposure to COVID-19. Certain things that would be considered a medical examination or a disability-related inquiry that would fall within the ADA. So be mindful of your obligations under that statute. If you need more assistance or insight into this, please contact your attorney. If you don't have one, feel free to contact us. We'd be happy to discuss these obligations with you. And yeah, again, moving along, coordinating with state and local health officials. Let's really keep our eyes peeled, stay in touch with our state and local health officials about what's required, what's being locked down, and more importantly, what's not being locked down. I know here in Michigan, where I'm at, there are a lot of businesses that believe they're subject to the restaurants and bars closure that was part of Governor Whitmer's executive order, but that's not necessarily the case. You have to read closely between the lines, or the definitions of restaurants and bars under the statute to determine, if those entities are obligated to remain closed. So, um, again, work with an attorney if you have one. We strongly encourage that. And yeah, this is a good time to create or consult your business continuity plan. What sort of contingencies have you planned for these types of events? Again, as Nick discussed in our webinar earlier, was that he has a kind of an A, B, and C scenario in place for what's going to happen, and each scenario anticipates an escalation based on the activity or demand from his customers. So if business is stopping or if it's stalling, those two plans will look very different. But again, if you don't have a business continuity plan, this is where it's really important to be sitting down and putting pen to paper and planning out these things, so you're not caught with your pants down, so to speak, later on. So what our leaders are doing right now, there's the Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2020, which became law on March 6, 2020. Yeah, this is an appropriations bill. This is phase one of the United States government's plan to reduce the economic impact of the coronavirus. Um, yeah, expect to see more legislation coming forward in the coming weeks to respond to this. There's a lot going on in Congress right now. They're acting quickly, which, thank goodness. Really happy to see that our leaders are taking this seriously and doing everything they can to battle the hysteria that's and the fallout from this. So yeah, another bill that I want to bring to your attention that is likely to get through the Senate rather quickly and get signed by President Trump is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And within that bill, there's the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, the tax credits for paid sick and expanded family and medical leave. So let's talk about the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, which employers are covered. Again, this is a bill. This has not become law. So some of these points are subject to change. But for now, which employers are covered under the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act? This bill significantly expands, but on a temporary basis, the number of employers subject to the FMLA who must provide job-protected leave to employees for a COVID-19 designated reason. The bill covers any employer with fewer than 500 employees, although the bill also gives the Secretary of Labor the authority to issue regulations to exempt some small businesses with fewer than 50 employees and to exclude certain healthcare providers and emergency responders. The bill also covers government employers. Who is eligible for emergency leave? Any individual employed by the covered employer for at least 30 days before the first day of leave. And the benefits provided include allowing the employee to take up to 12 weeks of paid job protected leave if the employee is: one, complying with a requirement or recommendation to quarantine due to coronavirus exposure or symptoms and cannot work from home. Two, is caring for an at-risk family member who is quarantining. Or three, is caring for the employee's child if the child's school or place of care has been closed due to a public health emergency. However, the first 14 days of the leave may be unpaid. Employees may choose to use any accrued paid time off, including vacation and sick leave, to cover the initial 14-day period, but employers may not require them to do so. After the 14-day period, the employer must pay full-time employees not less than 2/3 of the employee's regular rate for the number of hours the employee would otherwise normally be scheduled. For salaried employees, employers must pay 2/3 of the base salary for the weeks remaining after the initial 14-day period. So it also expands the definition of parent and family members to include certain in-laws and domestic partners, grandparents, grandchildren, and others. The effective date and expiration of these expanded provisions will become effective within 15 days of enactment and remain in effect until December 31st, 2020. And again, this all assumes that this bill is not changed in the Senate and becomes law. So moving again along to the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, this would cover employers with fewer than 500 employees and government employers. The eligibility for paid sick leave is all employees, regardless of their duration of employment prior to leave. The benefit is available for the following uses. One, to self-isolate because the employee has been diagnosed with coronavirus. Two, to seek a diagnosis or preventative care for coronavirus because the employee is exhibiting symptoms. Three, to care for a family member who is quarantining due to a diagnosis, exhibiting symptoms, or needs to seek medical care. Or four, to care for a child whose school has closed or whose child care provider is unavailable due to the coronavirus. Benefits provided under the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. Upon the declaration of a public health emergency, which we are currently in, including the current coronavirus pandemic, an employer must provide an employee with 80 hours of paid sick leave at the employee's regular rate of pay, or 2/3 of the employee's regular rate to care for a child whose school or daycare is closed due to a public health emergency, or to care for a family member who is quarantining due to medical recommendation, has a coronavirus diagnosis, or is exhibiting symptoms. Part-time employees are entitled to the typical number of hours that they work in a typical 2-week period. While we will continue to monitor the final legislation for guidance, it may be that employees can elect to use their 80 hours of paid sick leave during the initial 14 unpaid leave under the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act that I just described. So how does this apply to employees with irregular schedules? Employees who work in a regular schedule are entitled to be paid based on the average number of hours the employee worked for the 6 months prior to taking paid leave. Employers must post a notice informing employees of their rights to emergency paid sick leave. This, in terms of coordinating with existing policies, the emergency paid sick leave provided by this bill is in addition to any sick leave made available to employees under the employer's existing policies. And currently, an employer may not change its current paid leave policy after enactment to avoid this provision. So, again, this would be a great time to revisit your sick leave policies if you do need to make cuts before this Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act becomes law. It might make sense to revise your sick leave policies just to reduce the impact to your bottom line. Again, this is because this is still a bill. This has not become law. So based on the imminence of this law passing, it may be wise to review those provisions in your employee handbook. So the effective date and termination of the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act will take effect no later than 15 days after enactment. It will expire on December 31st, 2020. Tax credits for paid sick and expanded family and medical leave. The bill also provides a series of refundable tax credits for employers who are required to provide the emergency paid sick leave and the emergency paid family and medical leave that we just discussed, subject to certain caps, employers may be able to recover 100% of qualified sick leave wages and 100% of qualified family leave wages. So we will continue to monitor these legislative efforts and provide updates as appropriate. If the crew at Grasso will be continuing these webinars, we would like to participate in any way we can just to keep those construction and home remodeling businesses updated as to what's going on, and what else our leaders are doing. In addition to that, we also are aware that the government is granting individuals and businesses a 90-day extension to pay income taxes. This is applicable to individuals who owe $1 million or less in income taxes, and corporations that owe 10 million or less in taxes as well. Again, that takes effect immediately. So you have 90 days from the April 15th deadline to pay your income taxes. Lastly, we are aware that there's another bill being circulated. There's a big stimulus package that the Treasurer, Steve Mnuchin, has been discussing publicly. It's between $850 billion and $1 trillion stimulus package, and part of that is providing a check of sorts that will be paid directly to individuals that are over the age of 18. So this is good news for people that are really impacted by this public health crisis that we're going through. $1,000, it could be more. We're still waiting to hear what the value of that amount will be, but this is a great way for the employees to kind of reduce the impact of what's going on. Keep this in mind when you're considering cost-cutting measures. If eliminating staff is not something that you want to do, maybe discuss pay cuts, temporary pay cuts, to kind of help stifle the impact of this virus. Aside from that, feel free to contact me. Here's my contact information at the firm. This is my email right here at the bottom, and my direct cell phone number.
This is Nick Richmond here, everyone. Bottom line of what Nick's telling you is, if you don't have a good attorney, give him a call. He can tell you everything you need to know. He's helping me tremendously, and that kind of takes me right into my initiative. So first and foremost, this is Nick Richmond. I am the CEO of Matrix Home Solutions and also a partner in the Grasso University. And we're very proud to be able to lead this call. And thank you to Chris for putting this together. It was really his idea. As a leader in the business, in this industry, first and foremost, we are still operational. I was really inspired today up here in Chicago. We had 50-degree and sunny weather, and I was driving around, and I couldn't help but notice that the vast majority of the people who I saw working were construction workers, remodelers, landscapers, home services. And I actually, honked my horn and gave them a friendly wave. And it made me feel good to see that we're so lucky to be in an industry that allows us to still continue on and create revenue and operate. And we are still operational. And as a leader, I think it's really important as you go through this that you provide a clear initiative to your team. One of the very first things that we did through Nick Goldsworthy's direction was circulate an email to our entire team to help them understand our vision of this and kind of how we perceive it. And the message should be very optimistic and focused. I have a sample of that email that I circulated to my staff. I'm happy to share that with you guys. But the message was pretty clear that we still have opportunity to take advantage of today, and you can only control what you can control. And while we're monitoring the situation and we're aware of the severity of it, we are also balancing between carrying our momentum forward, putting everyone in the best possible position to take care of themselves financially while being cognizant of the situation at hand. And we've been gradually, transitioning through this kind of as things change. We're making changes, and we're trying our best to predict those changes, but we're still laser focused on what we have in front of us today. I have taken a really active approach now more than ever in my business. I believe that if I'm going to require my team to work and to be here and to be out on appointments and be out there installing jobs. It's important that I'm involved as well, and that I'm here in the office and I'm in the trenches with the team. Not only that, between myself and the ownership and also the management level people in my organization, we are all making sure that we're like-minded and that we're lockstep with the philosophical values and also the transition and the measures we intend to take as a group so that everyone is on the same page. Part of what we enacted here was a zero tolerance policy around hysteria. So essentially, if someone is found to be hysterical over this or they're unable to focus, if we're finding it's interfering with their ability to do their job, we are sending them home. We're keeping them motivated. I suggest that you create compensation changes to incentivize people to push even harder. And I can give you some examples of what we've done here. We had an amazing sales meeting today. Matrix Home Solutions and Mad City, believe it or not, are pacing a record month. Matrix Basements is on its way to doing over $4 million in business this month, and we're having big days every day. Our guys are hungry, and it's really an amazing thing, quite frankly. My thought process was, to continue to try to make money while this is happening, while we have the opportunities, so that if we are met with a shutdown, we are in a position where everyone is in a good spot. And so part of today's initiative in our sales meeting was a few amazing things that I suggest you offer to your team. And that is all net business sold during this time, we're paying 100% of the commission up front after the right of rescission passes, so long as it's a good net deal. So we're paying them 100% of their commission up front to give them a boost in their personal cash flow, to get them pushing harder to bring cash into our business, and we're giving them 100% up front. We've also armed them with the ability to offer rebates to the customers. So we have a fixed amount that we're rebating back to our customers as a way to give them instant cash flow and to help them through this time. And we're advertising and pushing no money down, and we're working with our lenders to roll out some really, really exciting deferment plans that are going to give that homeowner more breathing room so that they can get through this as well and still enjoy the home remodeling project and get the ball rolling. So my approach to this whole thing has been a phased approach. And I'm taking this thing one day at a time. And the phased approach is a balance of what I'm doing in the here and now, what I'm trying to predict for tomorrow, and then later on down the line, what could happen. I'm a big believer that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I think it's important that you have a written strategy and that you make everyone aware of that strategy. And in this case, I have two strategies. I have the if things are to slow down strategy, and then the if things are to stop entirely and we're shut down strategy. And those strategies are not the same, but the gist of them are both met with a lot of urgency. Again, pushing for sales volume, pushing my installs, pushing those collections, rehashing, and we're hitting it harder than ever before. I told the reps today, I said, if there was ever a time to one call close, the time is now. You got to look at this like an opportunity. With all the opportunities that we're going to give you to incentivize you and the homeowner, there's never been a better time for them to take advantage of locking in this home remodeling project. This too shall pass, and when things subside, they'll look back and be very happy that they had the opportunity to get together with us now. We're staying informed. We're communicating with Nick and our Human Resources Department with every day to understand what's changing, what policies exist that we need to be aware of, how, from a compensation standpoint, with these relief bills, are we going to be able to make changes to where we're still able to protect our employees and take care of our key people. And I have so much to talk about. I don't want to eat up the whole 90 minutes, but I can tell you that for those of you who know of my brother and I, who have heard our story, I mean, we learned a hard lesson from the last recession, and we came back stronger than ever as a result. We learned a lot through that experience, and this time around we're extremely prepared, and we've really been preparing ever since we restarted back in 2009. by virtue of making sure that our companies are profitable and that we maintain a good chunk of buffer money to stave off these slow times. And then more importantly, if you're not in that position, it really doesn't change anything. Because now more than ever, it's important that if you're going to be conducting business, you're focusing on profitability, execution, and doing more with less, which may involve you doing more work than you've ever done before. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. So to talk a little bit about the phases of my plan and to hopefully help some of you with some tips and pointers of things you may consider doing if you're not doing it already. Again, staying informed and reviewing the daily changes, making sure everyone remains calm and enthusiastic. I'm trying to keep the mood light around here. I was playing some Led Zeppelin earlier out of the Bose speaker and just trying to make it fun. And we're still here working, although we're keeping it down to 10 or less staff members here at a time. We are still coming into the office. We are implementing and strategizing towards the work from home possibilities. We've already began to wean down our staff to get to this level. Typically, we have anywhere from 60 to 70 bodies coming in and out of the office, and now we have a situation where we're doing 10 or less. So we already have people working from home. Some of that working from home and the things you need to know as far as legalities, insurance, protecting yourself, that stuff Nick was going to talk more about. We actually had to institute new policies for those people who are working from home, get those things in writing, and have those people sign off on those policies. Obviously, when you're doing your strategizing, you have to consider all possibilities leading up to the potential of a shutdown, but also having another strategy alongside of it that speaks to the here and now, which is we're still operational. So for me, again, it started with in level one, which was probably last week, was informing employees of the initiatives, making sure that I'm updating them regularly in writing, and also verbally, I presented to them and made sure they understood my position. We posted COVID 19 flyers and policies around the office. If you are still showing up to your office, you should look up. You should get those flyers printed and make sure they're posted in your workplace. And then begin reviewing and cutting discretionary expenses. So one of my very first strategies was to cut all unnecessary expenses. And that's not always a bad thing anyway. Despite what's happening now, we oftentimes look at our expenses and we trim fat. That's what you do when you're running a company and you're pushing a lot of volume. A few percentages here or there make a big difference. So for example, I was about to purchase, $2,000 worth of polo shirts and trucker hats for the installers. And I had the check and the order sitting next to my desk, and I handed it back to my controller and I said, I don't think now is the time to buy $2,000 worth of polo shirts. How you might liken that to your expenses, I don't know, but I would suggest you cut all the unnecessary expenses and work on stockpiling cash. Staving off a slow patch or having to hit pause and ride out a suspension of business. To be able to reboot, it's going to be important that you stockpile cash. So we're working really hard on driving up our cash on hand by pushing the urgency of new sales, the urgency of installations, the urgency of rehash. We're negotiating with vendors. It's kind of good timing in my opinion. That might sound kind of shrewd, but we actually called around to all of our marketing vendors when things started to heat up, and we basically told them that we're cutting out our marketing spend and we're reducing in many areas. And in some cases we did cut, and then in other places we found that they were willing to drop their pricing considerably, and it gave us an opportunity to still work with them and cut down on our marketing spend. And then we implemented scripts to reduce fear for both our employees and our prospects. We have scripts that we're using in our call center to deal with the potential of cancellations. We have scripts that we're using for production to continue to keep people comfortable having us in the home to do the installations. We have a letter we mailed out to all active projects to keep them comfortable with us coming in and doing the installations. I can provide you guys with that letter. It worked really well. We only had a couple people out of literally 100 active installs that said, hey, let's stop. Otherwise, everyone else is letting us work. Now, level 2 is more like the here and now. So last week for me was level 1. This week is level 2. Getting secure financially, we've talked about that. Staying informed of the government relief programs, doing more with less, so continuing to look at my overhead, and I'm asking myself, who here can do more? Who here can wear multiple hats? Luckily, we have people here who are cross-trained that are able to do multiple things well. And so I have a lot of peace of mind knowing that I can lean on those people. Reducing underperformers. I mean, now is the time to cut experiments. If you have new reps or reps that have been failing to hit the slug, unfortunately, if lead flow starts to dry up, you're going to want to feed your hitters. And now might be a good, time to actually make the move to cutting those people who are underperforming. Implementing a work from home strategy. Again, there's remote performance and policy guidelines that we put on those folks that we can share with you. We created a COVID-19 employee handbook. This was by the advisement of our attorneys and legal, HR, to create a handbook that speaks to this time so that we're actually spelling out for them clearly how we're going to operate and deal with things during this time. We think that's a good idea to make sure it's very clear to people how we're going to handle this. Again, communicating with the active installs. That was an email we just sent out on Sunday and Monday. Spot checking the stability of suppliers. So we're calling around to make sure that people are, optimistic like we are and that they're still rocking and rolling, and we're trying to stay in the know if there's anything we should know. Because at this juncture, as long as we can get in front of homeowners and sell them and we can get out there and install jobs, other than getting supplies, we're still good. And so we're checking in on that periodically to make sure that we're not caught off guard in a situation where we can't get product. We're preparing for virtual selling. So we actually have our sales leadership, along with Chris, training our current sales team on how to get ready to do virtual selling. And whether or not that's just for rehash purposes, or it's for dealing with the people who are currently not willing to have us out to the house, or it becomes the norm if we're not able to go anywhere, we want to be prepared. So we're training everyone right now on how to sell windows and baths and do rehash on basements through virtual selling. And then we're going to talk more about that today. And then again, discussing the shutdown versus slowdown with my partners, making sure that they're all on board with my plan and they understand how their departments have to respond to one or the other. And we're monitoring that situation very closely. Again, all this planning, these levels and stuff I'm telling you, is not because I'm in a mode of panic. I'm just staying prepared, and I'm really trying to do our very best to persevere and actually continue to succeed, which we are doing during this time. And then here comes level 3. This is getting a little more intense. This is maybe next week if I had to guess, but we'll see. And that is, getting that slowdown versus shutdown plan in writing, actually documenting those thoughts and sharing it with key management. Pushing these new financing options, which by next week, Sunlight Financial, who's going to talk next, is going to roll out a plan that we worked on together that is going to blow your mind, and it really puts your reps in a great position. Again, owners, boots on the ground. I'm ready to run leads. Actually, I ran a few this month already. Sold a basement for $133,000 with my business partner. I'm ready to go out and do whatever it takes. I'm in the phone room, cheering them on, involved in the sales meeting. I ran most of the sales meeting today, and I want to make sure everyone sees that I'm here and I'm ready to go. Again, continue to fight for those in-home sales and those installs. You can control this, and you can keep people calm, and you can keep that going. You have more control than you know, and I think you got to keep fighting for that. Let's face it, these people who are working for right now, if we can quarantine ourselves in that workplace and come in and out of their basement through an egress window, why wouldn't they want us to keep building? They're probably happy that we're there doing the work and that they're going to get their work done, while a lot of other people are probably wondering if they're ever going to get the work done that they gave a deposit for and signed a contract for. We're letting those people know, too, that we're in a good position financially and we're going to take care of them. And that helps to have all that production inflow coming in. Be ready to scale. Again, what's your plan for getting even smaller if you have to? And, what more can people do if they have to take on more work? That helps retain the key staff. If you have to scale back and you're cutting costs, divert some of that money to your key staff members and ask of them to do more work. And I know our key staff members here will. If they got to work 12 hours a day and, bust butt to keep the income coming in, to keep themselves in a good spot, that's what it's all about. Everyone's in this together, and that's the attitude that we have. And then we're still engaging and training our staff. We're here doing this with you guys today. We feel like engagement, keeping people mentally active, keeping in their psyche is probably one of the most critical components of this current thing that we're dealing with. And I wish that we had the whole world on this call to hear this, because the reality is I do think that's half the battle. Our business is blessed because we can still operate without putting a lot of people at risk. And the only thing that can really kill us is the 6 inches between our ears. So I say stay positive constantly throughout this whole thing. And that's what's happening. I mean, we are still doing very well. To that point, we're keeping people remote, and we are giving all of our production managers and our sales reps the ability to handle all the deposits remotely. All of our lenders and banks are still transacting, and we're sharing a lot remotely via GroupMe, which is one of the threads we use. There are other ways to keep your teams active, but we're keeping them very active on a regular basis. And, I guess the point of what I'm trying to tell you here is have a plan, execute. You can't be afraid to execute. And, the reality is that if this is a short stint, and God willing it will be, chances are this can just be a blip for you, but you got to have a plan. It's one thing to put your head down and ignore it, which I think is dangerous. And it's another thing to get consumed by it too. You have to find that happy medium, and you have to bear that load as the owner so your employees can do their jobs, stay focused, and they got to trust in you that you're going to take care of them and put their best interest and the best interest of the company in front of everything else, except for that, of course, of your family. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Kevin because he has some things to talk about that I think are maybe some of the most critical parts of what we're going to talk about today. Gotcha.
Before we get into the actual loan aspect, just give you a little background on how Sunlight has prepared themselves for this situation. We have gone 100% remote, which is no small feat given multiple offices and several satellite sales offices across the country. Fortunately, our systems and everything that we have set for and built for was really meant for a remote type of situation. I say that because that means there's no interruption in business, from the call center to the origination of loans to the funding to communication back and forth to our bank partners, and most importantly, to the service for the sales reps that are in the home. So we're already there. We've already enacted those initiatives. We're rolling as normal. So what we put together with Nick's help here is a series of loans for really two purposes. One is going to be the short term to help you rustle up some business, keep your business going while this situation is developing. Then the second phase of this, and where I think these are really going to be helpful, is coming out of this situation. We're going to be faced with a lot of consumer uncertainty. People are going to be concerned about, paychecks, about jobs, about things like that. So you want to be able to take away those objections at the kitchen table. And we're committed to helping contractors during this period by doing some, pretty special promotions here. So what we've done to ease the consumer's purchasing concerns is create a suite of programs that allow the customer to buy the product today and then defer the payments. So this is just a small snapshot of what we offer. I have 60 some odd loan programs available. But what you see here, we have some short-term stuff like a 3-month no pay, a 6-month no pay, and then even a 12-month no pay. But where these differ than a lot of the products in the market, we're combining those with some of the most popular interest rates and terms. So you can give the customer the best of both worlds in these scenarios. You can give them the ability to purchase the product today. Give them 6 months where they have no payments. If they happen to pay it off, they're not going to have interest. If they don't, then it's going to become a manageable interest rate at a fixed term with a low monthly payment that you guys can sell. And then Nick wanted to create, a lot of the 12-month stuff and combo that with some of the more popular rates and terms that he's seeing for his product. So we even have a product here, 12 months no pay, that converts to a 3.99 for 12 years. Obviously, there's different levels of fees. So you'll have to figure out how you address that on your side. But the point here is that the programs are set up to try and help you do a couple things. Get that customer closed today that is nervous on pulling the trigger because they're concerned about the payments. And then when this thing ends and we come out of it, give you a chance at unique promos that can help you take away customers from your competitors by giving these customers options that nobody else is really offering. And then in the next slide, we'll sweeten the pot even more to help you and your business. So what we're offering is on all loan products is a rebate structure that's going to be valid from today until the end of July. So anything that's originated, sold with us, we're going to pay you back. So at these different levels, we'll pay cash rebates back to the installer proportionate to the volume that comes through us. So $2.5 million, I mean, it's 1%. It's $25,000 that you could apply to marketing, to help you. Doesn't help short term. It's not going to help you pay the payroll today. But what this is going to do is help you look at it, say, okay, I can sell some jobs. I can get some financing through. I can earn a little bit of money. So maybe in Q3 and Q4, I can apply that additional capital to increase my lead flow to help overcome what I lost while this situation is going on. Keep it short and simple. To get started, you see the website there. It's just sunlightfinancial.com/Grosso. Get set up. We'll have some contact information on there. In closing, I can say that there is some feedback we've gotten from our teammates since going remote, and I think it's worthy of sharing here on this call. We took a look at all of our teammates' goals. We didn't want to take away sales goals and just make it zero where people can run around and do whatever they want. But we were realistic on it. So we took a look at what we had set for the team for the quarter and for the next quarter. And we readjusted it based off some of those levels that Nick shared with you. So what we've done is instilled confidence in our sales team that even if there is a slowdown or even if things do shut down for a time period, they have manageable goals that they're still going to have to work hard to hit, but it's now not something that's completely unattainable. That keeps them engaged, that keeps their income flowing. My thought is probably the most important to me in this whole situation, if I can impart one piece of advice, is to keep your employees and teammates happy for as long as you can. If that means deferring cash, paying them when they're not working, it's a tough pill to swallow. But when you think about it in the long run, those people are your business. And if you don't take care of them, the cost after the fact to recruit, hire, train, and get people back up to that level is infinitely more than the short-term hit to keep those good people on today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. That's game changer right there. I'm sure there's a bunch of excitement going on out there right now, knowing that we've got some tools to help overcome some of the challenges that we're up against. All right. Next, I believe we've got Hatch.
My name's Chris Bache. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called Hatch. We're a business messaging platform for home improvement companies. We work with about 600 companies across the country. And when Chris asked me to speak about minimizing the impact of COVID-19, what I did is I got my entire marketing team to actually reach out to customers who are using our platform to mitigate or navigate through some of the following examples if you want to move to the next page. And I'll show you guys, these are specific, not only strategies, but tactics that we're seeing these folks use in the business that's actually working. So when I think of Nick's chart about phases, like phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, to me, this fits perfectly in phase 2 about how do you get productivity from folks that are working at home and the consumers that are obviously still getting home improvement projects done. They're just at home. How do you make that work? So we want to help you navigate the reality of a couple of things today. We'll talk about strategies with canceled appointments because people don't want to be seen in person, demo no sales, and then communication amongst your team. So I want to jump into the first one, which is rehashing quotes. I think Nick mentioned it earlier. So rehashing demo no sales. Let's talk about first the expected business outcome that we're hearing from different home improvement companies out there right now. Obviously, there's uncertainty in the market, and customers want reassurance on pricing and next steps. And what we're hearing is that if you're able to get in touch with your customers using messaging with the right voice, that you'll be able to close more business and offer flexible solutions. So some actionable strategies that we're helping our customers with today, and I'll show you how they're working and give you a real life example of some responses. One is automating multiple touch points coming directly from the owner or the sales manager, somebody in leadership, following up with demo no sales, saying, hey, we hear you. If you can go back one slide. Sorry, Chris. Yep. 2 is you need to find the true objection. If it's COVID, obviously we want to pull that out of folks and then make them feel hopeful that they can still get their project done. And I think we've heard of some financing options today that can make people still pull the trigger so you guys can get some business in, or find if it's pricing or timing. And then the third thing that's really important is routing these conversations appropriately based on the response from the customer. And so one of the strategies that we implemented about a week and a half ago, you can jump to the next slide, is this multi-touch strategy on how to stay top of mind with rehash demo no sales, but being mindful of what's happening in the field. You can't just call customers today and say, hey, you didn't buy yesterday. Can we lower the price and get the deal done? Like, that's not going to work in today's climate, right? So we got to be sensitive to that, but still stay on top of our customers. And so we've instituted through our messaging platform, and what we've seen work really well is this sort of 4-touch over 6-day cadence. And the message each day is bringing the COVID situation to the forefront and getting people and consumers to tell you why they haven't moved forward. I want to show you guys a slide here of an actual conversation through our messaging platform. So 3 players are involved in this strategy: the sales manager, they have a finance manager, and the customer. Those are the 3 players involved. 24 hours after the customer was seen, we're sending them a text that looks like this. It's very personalized. It's directly from Matt, the sales manager at Bath & Window Experts. We changed the name, of course, but we know there's a lot of uncertainty right now with COVID-19. I wanted to check in with you on your upcoming project. If there are any questions or concerns I can answer for you. The customer responds. I think you guys will find this interesting. They say, thanks for reaching out, Matt. To be 100% honest, we're worried about cost. The market's very unstable right now. You're probably going to hear a lot of that. So the way that this sales manager handled that once the conversation was routed to him was, we completely understand. You're aware of the federal interest of 0% and then deferring some of those payments. It's a good way to get some of this done if you're interested. The customer that says, yeah, we've heard the cuts, but we're not sure how it affects our project. Then they're able to bring in the finance manager to help the customer understand how they can take advantage of this. They're doing it all through the platform. And I thought this was a great example of real life, how rehash has sort of changed, right? This isn't a quick telephone call through a dialer. This is, messaging directly with a person, very personal, finding out what's holding them back, and then trying to find if there's a solution. Strategy 2, canceled appointments. So I've heard many things right now. Out of the 600 companies we work with, I think more than half are saying that they are seeing like a 10% cancel rate, and then we've got another half saying it's 50%. So no matter where you are, we think you should have a strategy for canceled appointments, giving your customers the ability to have a virtual appointment, because a lot of them are probably home bored with the kids anyway. So the expected business outcome on this strategy is that customers in quarantine, your customers are probably going to cancel their face-to-face appointments just to be safe. It's smart to probably do that. So you may need a strategy around responding to cancels and getting appointments virtually. People still want to do their projects, and you guys don't want business to slow down. So here's some actionable steps. 1, reach out to customers with multi-touch campaign. This is more of a B2B approach with multiple touches, offering content and asking questions. 2 is give incentive to move forward with the appointment and offer virtual remote appointments. I want to show you guys an example of this. So the way that we're handling with our customers today, we're seeing work very well, is to touch the customer early and often using messaging. In this example, you have 4 touches in 4 days, really drilling down. And I want to show you a live example of this on the next slide, which is this is us helping our customers really go after these cancels and say, hey, guess what? We're doing, you can read here in the text message. Ms. Ferguson, this is Matt with Bath & Window Experts. We're doing virtual appointments for our customers right now just to be safe. Are you still available at 5 p.m. today? These are only for cancels. If they still want to meet face-to-face, do it. Matt, that's a great idea. What time works? Great, 5 p.m. works. Go ahead and click this link. There's tons of tools out there, and I think there's some partners on this call today that can help facilitate this. This customer used Whereby, and you can see on the next slide where they actually asked the customer to go outside and do some walkarounds, And even if this can't result in an absolute quote, it is building rapport with your customers. And we're seeing folks use messaging for this, and it's working. Consumers are actually down to walk through this entire process. This is the last strategy, and then we'll move on past this, which is, you can go to the next slide, just overall team communication. This came up yesterday as we were planning for this, which is currently your team may be all over the place, working remote, working in the field, working in the office, installers. We're seeing our customers using messaging to communicate using text message with every single employee, consolidating all communications in one single platform, and making that transparent to leadership and ownership so we can see everything that's going on with our employees, and it's really making a difference during this time. If you guys are interested in a toolkit, this is not only Hatch related, it is like literally every tool that we're seeing folks use. You can go to usehatchout.com/digital toolkit and see if anything is there to help you guys, because we want to be here for you during this time.
Matrix recently adopted the Hatch application just ahead of this, actually, not even thinking about how it would benefit us at this time, but it's proven to be really useful for us. And I'm going to try to bring Eric on from One Click Contractor.
Hello, everyone, and thanks. This is Eric Gossard, Director of Sales and Partnerships here with One Click Contractor. In short, One Click Contractor is a sales estimation platform that's going to support your process as it currently stands today and helps your business jump from really paper to digital. First and foremost, thanks Chris, thanks Nick, and the team at Grasso for hosting this panel and offering the home improvement industry kind of an opportunity to come together during this tough time as a family and rally around kind of the ideas that are shared here, and then technologies that are available out in the marketplace that people may not be aware of. So the slide you see here, we're ultimately positioned as an end-to-end sales solution. So One Click Contractor is going to support that sales process historically, either in-home or remotely. And we'll talk about that here in a second. You can see a lot of other tools. There's a lot of great solutions out in the marketplace. We either are going to integrate with those tools that exist out there, or we actually offer those solutions ourselves. We're both Android and iOS app stores, allow anybody with a piece of technology in their hands to utilize our platform to its fullest. The sales efforts have definitely changed over the last week pretty drastically and dramatically here on the national scale. The question that we're finding people asking us as we're extremely busy right now is, how do we get in front of homeowners? So we're here, we're ready to support your sales efforts. Really, it boils down to enabling virtual selling, which is a must in the current atmosphere. Being able to take advantage of remote measurements and interact with homeowners through text to photo features. And then all of that really delivers a fast estimate to a homeowner. So now you're empowering them to go through this virtual experience that, one, they may not have known existed, but two, you're able to meet them on their common ground, as everyone or most people at this point are struggling to have that face-to-face interaction kind of in the field. So how we tackle virtual selling, we do it by enabling screen share that's built right into our platform. Ultimately, a buyer does not have to download a link. There are a lot of different technologies out there that are forced to go through download situations, and you want to be able to avoid technical glitches. So when you're on a customer job in our platform, wanting to go through either building an estimate or reviewing an estimate and proposal that you've built for a homeowner, we support that screen share functionality right through the platform. It's as simple as clicking on the screen share invite when it's sent to an email, and the homeowner can see your web browser at that point. And so what you see here, we have a lot of things that have popped up over the last, let's just say 12 to 15 months. This is still an industry that is full of craftsmen and a lot of artists, and technology can be a scary thing. There's no better time to embrace being able to evolve your business and meet customers that are really now expecting technology to be a larger part of the process. And so a lot of the excuses or questions that you see over on the left, am I going to lose control of my business? What happens if I fail? Why can't we just keep doing things the same way? Businesses can certainly go about that. Given the current COVID crisis, we want to be here to support as a product and position ourselves as an outlet to continue to reach homeowners and potentially drive important revenue to keep businesses afloat throughout this period, not knowing how long it may last. These are all things that we're hearing on a daily basis, and we can consult with you, work with your business specifically to work through some of the quick stand-up challenges, and we can get a period at this point. We've made some adjustments on our simplified process in the industry, and so we're confident that we can support your business as well.
This platform comes out of the box pretty quick as far as integrating your pricing, integrating your presentation, your contracts, your financing. Everything can get built into this program fast. And we're not doing this just to endorse them, although they are a partner of ours. It's really about back to the plan and being prepared. This gives you the ability to rehash everything and anything right now. As the owner of a company, being from the school of hard knocks and having taken a beating once before during a recession, nothing is beneath me. I don't care if I have to go out and start swinging a hammer, although it might not turn out all that good. I would try. But what I would rather do is sit at my desk as the owner and virtually rehash behind all of my reps and clean house. Because let's face it, you as the owner are going to be the most motivated, aggressive, persuasive, and confident person that you could put behind that task if it ever came down to it. You have that ability with this program. And then scoop up all those appointments. And if you see the trend starts to shift, which I think it's going to, where more and more people are going to cancel or reschedule their appointments because they are stricken with fear, and maybe rightfully so. It's not my place to say, but should that happen and should that become the norm, there's still time to prepare yourself and get set up now, so that if that does become the norm, now your call center is focusing on setting virtual sales calls, and your team is at home prepared to do them. And I do believe this is a real opportunity, because everyone will agree with one thing, and that is eventually this is going to pass. Eventually it's going to subside. We just don't know for how long. So if you're offering amazing financing options and you're giving your customers a good reason to place their order now and just set it on the shelf, I think that's a win-win-win. And I think people are going to be more available now than ever to have those discussions. So Eric, I think that's what we'll do. We'll circulate the webinar. And I'm so excited about your vision. What's kind of scary about this is how the vision we share is now coming to fruition in a way where we got to get moving faster. And I think the nice thing about this is, in hindsight, when it's all over with, this will now be a whole nother weapon we have that we're going to utilize even once this thing blows over.
And we're certainly excited to be a part of that. And we want to be able to support as many businesses, local businesses, as we possibly can. Real quick here before we move on, if you have questions, certainly feel free to reach out to the information here on the screen, info@oneclickcontractor.com. That will actually come to me and my leadership team, and we can get somebody working with you as soon as possible, if not immediately. So we do appreciate your time, and thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for having me on. All of this info has been incredible. Understanding challenges, creating solutions is kind of the message I see out there, no matter what part of business you're talking about. I know, in today's landscape, we've got a lot of contractors out there that, maybe their lead flow is down, but setting appointments can be a major challenge. One of the things that we did as a company, and by the way, my name's Caleb, owner of Destination Motivation. One of the tools that we leverage or that our contractor clients leverage is these vacations. So a cruise or resort voucher as a multi-tool to help use in marketing, to help use at the close, to help, leverage in call center to set appointments and things like that. And one of the message we put out there first of last week was, hey, from a customer service standpoint, we're here on all of our vacation vouchers out there. We're extending 3 months to sort of weather the storm over the next whatever period, whatever that looks like. So as an owner, I think it's important to kind of get ahead of this stuff. Nick obviously articulated that, in the beginning, all the steps that his company has taken. I would say as a whole, our clients are leveraging our vacation vouchers now more than ever. At the end of the day, setting appointments is critical. And now a lot of that's going to be virtual. and a lot of people have sent their staff home, which, now you kind of go into the challenges of, how do you manage that, right? And my company specifically has always been remote. So yes, we have an office, but we also pretty much everyone is spread out throughout the whole United States. And that can be a challenge because in this current landscape, you have people sent home, but then you also have their kids that are being sent home from school, right? And one of the biggest challenges with remote working is really distractions. TV can get in the way, kids can get in the way. All of a sudden your kid asks you a question, you're helping them with something, and an hour and a half goes by, and all of a sudden you didn't get the task done that you were supposed to do. So a couple of solutions there: create a unique environment, like a private, quiet space to where you're not disturbed by other people. And then also at the same token, letting really kind of setting some boundaries. So letting people know, hey, listen, between these hours, like we got to try to not disturb me. Dad's got to work here or mom's got to work here. That can happen with friends and family members and pets being a distraction. I think you guys all saw that famous video of the news guy, and his kids kept coming to the room as he's trying to have a discussion on like NBC or CNN or whatever it was. So just communicating is really critical. Turning off notifications. I know we can get all kinds of bombardment with, especially right now, everybody's sending a cajillion text messages about, what the latest and greatest is with this coronavirus. And so just turning off those notifications on phone is critical to get rid of distractions. A lot of people, if you're sitting at home and you don't have any kind of management looking over you, you can easily get distracted with just the normal everyday stuff of social media like Facebook and Instagram and news. Like everyone's watching the news constantly, finding out what the next breaking news is with this. So kind of it's good to be informed, but removing that stuff really can help with productivity. There's more distractions now with this more than ever. There already was enough distractions. Now it's a mountain of distractions. Now, some people, all of that stuff might be a little challenging. You don't really have control over that. If your employees don't really have control over themselves, you can always just flat out block websites in your browser. So those are some helpful tools. In terms of priority challenges, time management is critical. I know we talked about setting goals earlier. Some of those goals, they're not going to be the same goals as they were, right? But I think it's still extremely important to still set goals. Even if maybe they're not achievable. Now is the time to really crack the whip and let loose and get your team working harder than ever. Communication is over the top important. I know a lot of companies out there leverage certain programs like Slack, where you can really communicate with your team uniformly, and it's all organized, and it's just a really cool program. A lot of the CRMs that you are already using right now have that function in it, so you wouldn't even have to do any kind of trial or pay for a company like Slack. But a lot of the CRMs that you use, like we use a CRM called Zoho, and we have a function in there that we leverage all day, every day with this. And it really helps keep the team not only on the same page with everything that's going on and really organized and informed, but it also keeps them motivated. And working remotely, one of the challenges, you kind of you just imagine you're kind of over in the in the basement, and it's dark and dingy and so you're not in that friendly, fun office environment. And having a communication platform like that really helps with camaraderie and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, my advice now would just be over communicate. And that brings me into, the last part, which is being isolated. That can have somewhat of a challenging on the psyche. And usually, if working remotely, a lot of people work from coffee shops and stuff like that. Well, that's not even a capability anymore, right? So I think it's crucial to, even though you're in that remote environment, you still want to take breaks. And a lot of people, and in the tech world, this is really big, but a lot of people will even take social media breaks. So once every 3 hours, they'll take 15 minutes. I mean, it sounds a little silly, but when you get in this environment, these things actually matter, and they make a really impactful difference in productivity and getting the most out of your employees and staff.
Caleb's in the cruise and vacation industry. He was impacted by this before the rest of us were. So he's certainly, if you're paying attention to social media, you'll see him out there. I wanted to bring him on because obviously he has some insight that we don't as far as working from home. I also just wanted to support him because he's a part of our community and he's being impacted by this quite significantly. So if you have an opportunity to support him, please do. Sure, he'll appreciate it. And then last thing is Nick and I are talking about some social things that we may implement, which would be like opening up a video channel and having lunch together. Things that you wouldn't think of traditionally, but may become important now. So I'm going to open the floor to Vince to talk about some of the cybersecurity measures that we should put in place as we go remote.
Hi, everybody. This is Vince Maz. I'm CEO and co-founder of Guard Street Cybersecurity. And I really appreciate being on the call today with everybody. I think that we've got some great people, great companies providing some fantastic advice today to maintain, if not continue to grow your business. From a cybersecurity perspective, though, it could all be meaningless if you don't protect your business and your assets as you pursue this. It only takes one attack to take down your business. And so I wanted to share with you a few areas that the coronavirus has really opened up from a hacker perspective, because it has been at a major growth rate, particularly the last couple weeks. Our company, Guard Street, we do work in the home improvement arena, construction industry. We do work in the travel industry. Companies like Hilton Worldwide work with us. We've seen the attacks go up substantially. So I thought what I would do here is point out a few of the risks that are out there today, originating through the changes that have been made, the haste to implement remote employees, and some resulting attack areas that you should be aware of. As we continue with the webinars, I'm going to provide you guys each week or so with some of the latest attacks and things that you need to watch and notify your employees about, so that they can keep your business safe. But then I'll also provide a few recommendations today that are just simple things that you can apply, policies, some simple technologies that you can use, and it's not expensive, especially during a time like this. You want to keep your costs down, but there's things you can do to protect yourself. Let me start with page 2, which are some fast facts. Look, the reality is attacks have been up in the home improvement industry the way it is. Forrester came out with a survey last year, and 75% of the companies in the builder industry that were surveyed were attacked in some way, shape, or form at least once over a 12-month period. That's pretty huge. The attackers love this industry because traditionally you've received clumps of money at a time. That's very attractive. Unfortunately, when they do attack and they view this industry as filled with soft targets that really aren't doing enough from a cyber protection perspective, although listening to some of the other folks on the call today, you've got some great platforms that are secure. Use these guys. but I will say that the attacks are hitting companies that are less than 100 employees, even more as you grow, less than 50. So 67% of the businesses that are less than 100 employees have been attacked. But 60% of those, again, when I mentioned earlier that it takes just one attack, 60% closed after 6 months. So just doing some smart things will help to keep you open, protect your business. The top dangers are falling in the breach category, but ransomware is just on fire. Wire fraud is on fire. These are things that, the pattern starts with a simple email, and it ultimately leads to your money vanishing. So, again, a few things that I'll share with you in a slide. If you can pursue these, you'll go a long way to protecting your business. So in terms of the risks, with the haste in moving employees offline, or away from the office to work in safety, one of the big challenges is that they are downloading company and customer sensitive information with their personal devices. So they're using their personal computer. Some of them, may have brought a thumb drive with them. These are not secure ways to be accessing company information. That's a digital security risk. Security generally is terrible with when employees are remote working at home. It's not going to be as secure typically as your company as you would want it to be. The other thing it's physical breaches that are taking place too. So employees that might print out quotes or sales folks that leave it in their car, and their car is robbed, or they're working in an area where there's unsecure Wi-Fi. Those are security risks that they're going through. So these are great opportunities for bad guys to tap into unsecured scenarios and hack information. The other category that's a substantial risk right now that we're seeing on the following page are coronavirus-related phishing emails. So right now, everybody is interested in seeing these emails from their employers, from vendors, from other groups. And the employees, by and large, are not being cautious about opening those emails. This is just a haven for cyber criminals, because people are, again, they're not looking at, closely at who is the email truly from. And there are typically a bunch of links for information telling employees, what's the latest number, how many people are exposed, how many deaths are there, when is this going to end? And they're clicking through the links, and unfortunately, malware and ransomware are being dropped onto systems. And so these are areas that you've got to be watching out for. They're just hot spots right now for cyber criminals. The World Health Organization has been a victim of this over the last week, and they've put out notices that you've got to be very cautious about opening up emails from the WHO. So anyway, one of the key things that you need to be aware of, 93% of the breaches that are happening are unavoidable, or are avoidable, sorry. The fact of the matter is, as business owners, you can't get comfortable. You've got to practice good cyber hygiene, not just washing your hands. I mean, encouraging your employees to follow policies that you shepherd, that you create, that you motivate them to follow, particularly as more of your employees are remote these days. Moving to the next page. So what do you do? So I there's a lot of things that you should be doing, but I broke it into two categories. Key policies. If your business doesn't have cybersecurity policies today, you've got to get them in place. I've listed a few items here. I would encourage you to share these with your employees if you haven't already. But to the extent that you are providing your employees with company devices, they've got to use them. That has got to be a requirement. You don't know what is on those personal devices. You don't want your customer information downloaded on a personal device or confidential company information. The other thing that's really important right now is requiring multi-factor authentication. So as employees are logging in into your company, garnering information, or even some of the platforms that we've talked about today, I can't stress enough the importance of using multi-factor authentication. Hackers can be watching and inspecting email, taking over email accounts, and waiting for that time when maybe a password change happens, and that's an opportunity for them to pounce. So multi-factor is really important. Additionally, from a policy perspective, Wi-Fi is just a tremendous convenience, but public Wi-Fi at the same time is an incredible security threat. So I strongly encourage you to make it a requirement that, particularly your salespeople who are always out there, to not use public Wi-Fi. And if they have to use Wi-Fi, give them a VPN. Give them a way to be secure while they're out and about. Okay, so there's some technology listed here. Email security is essential. Cyber liability insurance is essential for your business. To the extent that you don't have a cyber security plan in place, I'm happy to help you. My phone number and contact information is right there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Vince. And he's definitely going to be back with us. He works for Matrix and has helped us quite a bit. In the call center right now, it just needs to be an intense sense of urgency to set appointments, to get rehashes done, and anything you have on the books, be pulling those things forward. Tomorrow's the only day that we can predict. Well, today's the only day that we can predict, right? But tomorrow's second to that. So if you've got an appointment on Friday, get it on for tomorrow. Track any leads that are averse to scheduling in-home appointments so that when you get to the point of doing virtual selling, you've got a pipeline already. Do not let that part slip. You have to start tracking that now. Stay fluid. Have your managers available to help your frontline folks get past some of these objections and train them. Test remote technology now before you have to get to that so that you don't run into hiccups like we did today, for instance. Virtual appointment setting, get that rolling right now. Get your call center comfortable with it. Use honest dialogue with people. Sometimes you can just say to people, I know you're probably scared of this, but this is what we're doing. And I firmly believe that we have to sell hope. The idea of planning for the future means that we believe everything's going to be okay at some point. And we have to help people feel comfortable by selling them that hope, by letting them know that they should be planning for the future. And then turn things around. When you get somebody saying, they're hesitant or you feel like they're pushing that direction, ask them, hey, safety is our number one concern. Before we even talk about an appointment, there's not anybody in your house that's sick, is there? So do some pre-objection strategies like that. They're going to be really effective for you. I'm going to send these scripts out in the slide deck. There's some great stuff here that you can talk through with your staff and see what you can implement. The remote selling and the rehash, it's going to be really easy for us to get people on with us. People are going to want some interaction. So I'll send these scripts out, but realistically, there's no issue getting this stuff done as long as we're characterizing it the correct way. Be ready to execute your agreements remotely. Get a DocuSign account, learn how to use it, get all your documents up there, credit applications, things like that. Reach out to your lenders and make sure there's not going to be anything that stands in your way. Have a plan for getting your deposits to the bank. Nick Goldsworthy, if you're still on, can you talk through really quickly how we can address post-rescission cancellations and hesitancy?
All right. So, thanks, Chris. The 3-day right of cancellation is a cooling off period. It's a federal law it's federal and state. So how do we get around, this 3-day notice of cancellation? What's a good way to get around and avoid that? I guess that's careful contract drafting. just remembering and reminding the customer what your obligations are and what you're providing to them. They may not see a lot of what goes on behind the scenes with your company. So once you're past that 3-day mark and when you're trying to handle that, or I guess get them off the edge and get them from prevent them from canceling, is just reemphasizing the work that you've put in that as a salesperson, as a production manager, and really just everyone else behind that. So kind of emphasizing that and putting some other protections in there. There's always a cancellation provision that provides a penalty to the customer if they cancel outside of the rescission period. That's definitely something that's of value.
Thank you, Nick. This is Nick Richmond again. Nick Goldsworthy and I, and Courtney Goldsworthy, Whit Howard. I've known Nick since childhood. As a matter of fact, his brother is one of my best friends. We lived together next door to one another when we were 10, 11 years old. And that's not why we work with Nick and Courtney. It's because they have become extremely well versed on the home improvement industry. Now, having worked with Matrix for the last handful of years intensively on expansions, mergers, any and all things you can possibly think of. And I think Nick is probably one of the most well-versed in general, but also just more niche to home improvement by working with us and being a part of our camp now for quite some time. And again, this call isn't about endorsing these people. I'm proud to say we are happy, thriving, and prepared. And I think it's because these people that we work with truly are offering value. So just get in touch with Nick if you want to know and learn more about what he can help you with. The next thing we want to talk about is our Lightspeed training platform. Lightspeed is one of the greatest online educational platforms that exists. Grosso University has built out an extensive online training platform that has basic, mid-level, and CEO management level content. Matt Burke and Chris, who are on the call today, myself, Dominic Caminado, who's on the call today, we are all here and available to you to talk about Lightspeed. This program has not only a ton of video content and courses, but it has built-in testing. We're also integrating all of our sponsor partners and creating training platforms within Lightspeed for them to offer to their customers. And we're trying to bring this community together. We were really disappointed to have to reschedule our event, but we're still looking forward to having a great event, which will be happening. And that doesn't mean in the interim we can't start working on what we wanted to unveil at the event, which is really the most amazing collective group of partners in this industry who share the same vision, who are staying ahead of things and on top of things and have a sense of urgency and that are successful. And I'm super excited to see what's going to happen here. As FDR said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I think it's important for us to focus on what we can control and know that no matter what happens in this world, no one can control your mind. And if you put your mind to something and you look at every challenge as an opportunity and a way to learn and prepare and become stronger, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so we're here to support you. If you want to talk about getting on our platform, we're offering free trials. We're trying to help people. Abe Lincoln said if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend 6 of them sharpening my axe. So we're promoting training, getting prepared, positioning yourself so that you can look back after all this and say, wow, we took that challenge and we turned it into the boomerang that became this massive improvement. And the greatest thing about this that I'm excited to see is how our team as a whole gets to realize this challenge together. Because I can tell you as an owner, having gone through a recession, having failed so many times, it's hard sometimes to get the people who work for me to understand what that feels like and why that sense of urgency is so important. And I believe through this challenge, everyone together is going to feel that, and it's just going to strengthen everybody's organization. But it's up to you as the leader to have a plan. It's up to you as the leader to execute on that plan and to be on the front lines with your team. All right, so looks like we have one question here on the financing. It's a good question too. Does that 6 or 12-month deferment start from the point of completion or the point of sale? It's actually from the point of completion. So If you get someone started today on a project, and even with some delays, it takes you 6 months. You have a 6-month purchase window. If you fund that loan 6 months from now, it'll be from that point that the 6 to 12-month deferment begins. So you're actually, you know, in the case of a 12-month deferment, giving them 18 months of not having to part with a dollar day one before their loan begins.
Oh, you know what? I apologize, and thank you for the reminder. We actually have Engage on here, who does an awesome job with not only building, but using presentations that can be used within almost any of these tools. So I'm going to open the floor up to Charlie, and I think that if everything goes well, I'm going to make him the presenter.
Yeah, hey, Charlie's here from Engage. Let's see if we can get a screen share going for everybody as well. Hi again, everybody. My name is Charlie Goldberg. I'm the senior sales lead here at Engage. And as Grasso started to mention, Engage is here to help you tell your story in front of your customers, virtually with your customers, but we want to help you sell your services and your products with great presentations. We work with several companies across the home improvement industry on this call today, including Grasso, who are thinking about how to have a great customer interaction with a great sales presentation. The Engage team ourselves, we're all remote based. We actually use a tool called Zoom, which we'll recommend, and I'll show you in a second. But what we want to do is help you think about what you're doing with customers today in the home and give you some tips and tricks if you need to start enabling your call centers and your sales reps to start having those conversations virtually. Everybody on this call today is really familiar with that in-home sales presentation. Some of you might even be using digital presentations on computers or iPads, and we want you to think about how can you prepare yourselves for a digital virtual meeting with your customers. So moving away from that in-home sales presentation and starting to connect with your customers using digital tools. We're using GoToMeeting today. The Engage team, you know, I'd recommend Zoom as something to check out if you guys are beginning to think about virtual selling as a solution for your business. Now, the same things that tools that are making you successful in the home today, we actually think can be really powerful tools for virtual selling. And a lot of companies on the phone here today, including ourselves, we do the majority of our work selling software and services through programs like GoToMeeting and Zoom, video conferences, and over the phone. And we think there's a couple things that can really make you effective when talking to your customers in a virtual setting if you don't have the opportunity to sit at their kitchen counter or their kitchen table face to face. And so the things I'd like to go over today, if you're not doing these today in your in-home sales presentation, or you're thinking about developing a virtual presentation, I want you to keep in mind these 5 things. The first one is make sure your presentation feels personal and that they understand who your business is, where you guys work, what your services are, and that it feels like you're talking to them, even though you may be a computer screen away from each other. You certainly want to go ahead and start to build some trust. So you don't have that face-to-face connection. You're not sitting beside them at their kitchen table. How can you help them understand, you know, who you guys are, why to trust you, why they should invest with your company to come into their home and do some remodeling and some renovations? How can we use presentations to make the digital feel real? You may not have the opportunity to hand out samples. So how can a digital presentation really get a customer to feel digitally what your services and your products are like? Make sure everything is really simple. You know, not a lot of reading. People process visuals much faster than they can read words across a slide. And if you can't do that one and done close and you're doing virtual selling and you need to do some follow-ups, you know, how can you stay top of mind? What are your customers interacting with? when you do want to stay top of mind. So the first one I want to talk about is a personal connection with your customers. So NewPro is one of our customers, and they do a great thing that I think can be easily replicated. But talk about who your business is, who the owners are, how you guys got started, but also think about recording a personal video about thanking them for considering your business as a solution for their home. So this is just a quick video that NewPro put together, thanking the customers, introducing themselves. And if you don't have this today, it's as simple as having, maybe somebody in your home or yourself setting up your phone and just recording a quick thank you for having that call with the salesperson. Thinking about the customer knowing who you are, what your company is about, how can you start to build some trust? Before, you may not always have internet connection. And we want the customer to understand who your reputation is, your work in the area, make you feel like a neighbor to them. And sometimes you may just make a visual reference to your reviews online. But now that you're actually presenting over the web, you can do something as cool as just bringing up your review page right within the presentation. So I'm going to link out to Guild Quality here, but if you have reviews on your site, maybe on another review site like Home Advisor, this is a really great way to bring up live reviews, show your customers, actually what's happening in your neighborhood, and you get a full web browsing experience right here for your sales rep to guide a customer through, and a really great way to start to build trust. If you don't want to pop that up, you could do something as cool as embedding a map into your presentation. So I can click on the reviews in a certain area, and I'm not leaving my sales presentation, but I can go in here, show the customer that we actually did some work right down the street from them and got a 5-star review. So a really nice way to build trust with your customers through a digital experience. You've gotten the customer to feel out who you guys are as a company. You're starting to build some trust through digital communication. And now we want to figure out, what can you do if you can't hand a sample to someone? How can you help them imagine what their bathroom remodel, their roof replacement might look like for them? And so this is a really nice way, and it turns out to be really effective in the home, is using something we call a compare page. And so maybe you don't have the ability to take a photo of their bathroom, but you could take a series of before and afters with jobs you've done in the area, something that triggers a visual response so they can, think, hey, that looks just like my bathroom. I really love the style of the renovations you guys are completing in the area. Same idea for roofing. Maybe they're looking at a particular style or color. A really nice before and after can go a long way to help a customer visualize what the work your company can do for them looks like. And if you have a variety of different options that a customer can choose from, a way to incorporate that digitally in a similar fashion, maybe you have different shower wall offerings. So bringing in those different color palettes into one slide in your presentation, and then diving a little bit deeper so that the customer can get a really nice sense of what that can look like for them. And so you may not have these samples. I don't have to go through tons of different pages of information. I can simply tap through and show the customer actually what this style of shower replacement will look like in their home. Thinking about your process, your installation, your interactions with your customer, there's a lot of uncertainty, so you want to keep this next part really simple when you're talking to your customers about the installation and how you guys can work together, especially with any uncertainty that they might have. I have this siding replacement. This is what we call a scroll motion. It's a really powerful way to think about previous installations you've done and show this to a customer in a digital interface of what that looks like. So I can just drop in any video I have. I can slide through here, really nice. And in just a couple hours, the siding can be replaced on your home. Or if you want to go into a little bit more process focused, you could also set up your phone, do a nice video recording, or you can take a couple slides of what the installation of a shower replacement looks like and just kind of just scrub through here, some nice visuals, not a lot of text, help the customer understand that, in maybe a couple days or even a single day, they can get their shower replaced from your team. Hopefully at this point, you've been able to build a rapport with your customer through digital channels like Zoom or GoToMeeting. Now, they may not be ready to buy today through this, potentially half an hour to hour online interaction, but you want to be able to stay top of mind before you schedule your next meeting, or they have the ability to meet with the rest of their families on moving forward with the decision. Now, if you notice down here, what we do with no additional effort on your end is actually give you a way to share sales presentations directly with your customer. And we generate this link. And so any customer who has a cell phone, an iPhone, an Android, a tablet, or a computer can now access these presentations that your sales team or your call center are presenting right on their own devices. So this is a really powerful way, potentially before a meeting, after a meeting, or before your next call with a customer, to get this into the hands of your customers, especially since you may not have the opportunity to leave any paper aids or brochures in the customer's home, but they can go through all of your sales material or an augmented version of that collateral right on their own devices. So a really powerful way to think about how you can put your selling content into the hands of your customers, but also leave a really strong digital presence with them through virtual selling. If anybody has any questions or would like to learn more, feel free to reach out. Here's our contact information as well as our telephone number. Thanks, everybody.
At the end of the day, this is going to turn out to be a positive thing for us because it's going to be another tool in our belt. Companies like Engage, like One Click Contractor, like Hatch, they just bring so many benefits right now and in general. And it's a great time to just sharpen our skills, to learn some things that, maybe we've been putting off. If we've got extra time, the best thing we can do is figure out a way to hit the ground running when things pick back up. I'm blessed to be in the company of Nick and a great team here who, we're pushing through this and coming into work and putting our heads down just like it was last week and the week before, and making sure that we're not missing any opportunities. We're maximizing every lead. We're trying to treat our staff as fairly as we possibly can while ensuring that when things start to turn around, that they still have a home. And there's a lot of important decisions to be made regarding balancing the short-term ability to retain everyone and the long-term ability to have a position for them when things come back. But let's keep in mind that there's a ton of opportunities to engage with these people on a B2B type basis where, we have to move a little bit away from the one call close potentially. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to use those tools and those strategies right up until we find that maybe they're not working with someone, and then we have to have a fallback, which maybe means that we have to talk to them a few times. I also want to mention very briefly that if you're interested in the Lightspeed program, we are offering free trials to those who are on the call today. Reach out to Matt Burke regarding the opportunity. We'll also follow up with you. I am going to put into that free trial some documentation in the file vault that you can all gain access to. And I'm going to put in that file vault a COVID 19 handbook policy change that we suggest for working from home employees, something you could grab and probably distribute to help yourself with that, making sure you're compliant and protecting yourself with working from home employees. I'm also going to put the samples of the letters that we distributed to our active customers and our staff. Just so if you guys want to grab those items and review them, it always helps to have a template. And those things are in the file vault. So for those of you who take the free trial, you can grab those documents. They'll be in there for you to use. And again, we'd love to have you on the platform. We'd love to have you subscribe. Of course, it would be great to be able to do that. But more importantly, right now than anything, is we're just excited to share with people what we're doing that's working, because we want to spread the excitement and the optimism around, because I feel like, quite candidly, that's something that needs to happen. And again, I don't want to get all political here, but my mom is texting me with this doomsday stuff and wondering what she should do. And I just said, look, at the end of the day, a lot of that is in your head, and you got to surround yourself with people who are optimistic and spread that optimism and be a leader and know that you are in control, and that, if you don't let anyone control your thoughts, you're capable of anything. I think that there are going to be good times and bad, but usually when you come out of these bad times, things get better and better. And that's where we're looking, is ahead already.
to what this is going to mean for us as we weather the storm. And hopefully this is helpful to everyone on the call. We appreciate you, appreciate your support, and we're going to continue to put on these webinars and put out as much content as we can. So thank you again, and everyone make it a fantastic day.
Thanks, everyone.